actions and certain meanings, right? So in this way, when one of the examples of a Hindu name that we can kind of mess around with a little bit and it affects us is, one common example is Madhusudan, right? Madhusudan is a common name given. One of my uncle's name is also Madhusudan. What do we typically do with such names? We shorten it. And so what does Madhusudan become? Madhu. What does Madhusudan actually mean? Bhagwan Krishna, who is the conqueror of Madhu. Madhu is the Rakshasa. So I went from the conqueror of the Rakshasa to the Rakshasa himself. So we definitely have to be very careful in what names are being chosen and the true meanings of it. Let's not take Lalita Sahasranama and cut it wherever and then find a name that sounds good. Let's find genuine names that actually encompass what it means. Because how many times is that name invoked to call our own, invoke our own identity? How many times do we hear our own name and how many times do we use our own name? And so every time there is a name being invoked, it invokes its meaning and the entity that it represents too. So of all the names, when I use Bhagwan's name, who am I invoking invariably? Bhagwan himself. So his very presence, his very abilities, what he stands for both from the cosmic standpoint. When I say Bhagwan, he is that self, that substratum, that reality. He is also the entire cosmos, universe that I see in front of me. He's everything in this world. And he's also the Van of Bhaga. I'm taking the meaning of Bhagavan as well. Van means the beholder or possessor of blah, blah, blah. Bhaga means the 6 types of wealths, the 6 types of abilities. And that is comprehensive for all abilities in the world. Bhagavan is the one who has all of it. So even that I'm invoking when I say his name. So a simple thought experiment. Think about red heels. Red heels. Don't think about a green leaf. You can't even not think about something. Don't think about a pink elephant. What are you thinking of? The pink elephant. Name is such a strong thing that I can't even stop the invocation of the idea with that very name. So whether I believe it or not, just saying Rama instantly for a split second will bring that idea to mind. So may I leverage the power between the association of name and form, name and ideal, and use that to my advantage. So when I pick a Bhagwan's name to chant, there's also an element that we infuse bhakti into that relationship. When I say Bhagwan, I will have a vague idea. I'll know what he looks like because of all the pictures that, I can Google Rama and then I'll have 100 different pictures to look at. Devi, there's plenty of artistic rendition of what Bhagwan looks like. So the form comes to mind. But who is he? When you say bhakti, how do I develop that relationship? It's just this imagination in my head right now if I don't infuse bhakti into it. So let's take relationships we have in today's day and age on a normal basis. 2 people start off as strangers, but somehow end up becoming spouse, where they love and depend on each other so much that the greatest love story is when one passes away, the other can't even stay in this life anymore. They will follow suit. Strangers to beloveds. How did that transition happen? Time was spent to understand each other. Time was spent to go through experiences together and support each other. How can that kind of relationship be developed with Bhagwan himself? He's not there. He's not as real as someone else that's sitting right next to me. But similar fashion can be used. Why are there so many Puranas written for us? Not a single form of Bhagwan's avatara is missed in the Puranas. Devi, all her forms. Bhagwan Vishnu, all of his forms. Bhagwan Shiva, all of his forms. Puranas are vast. And I did a little experiment. Ramayana is very common to us because of Ramcharitmanas and Valmiki Ramayana. But if I wanted to, and then I just thought, is there any place where Ramayana comes up in the Puranas itself? Almost every other Purana has a summary of Ramayana in it, even Shiva Purana. And so one thing is, I like worshipping Bhagwan Hanumanji because he stands as a junction between Shaivism and Vaishnavism. I don't have a problem with either one of them. Why? Because Bhagwan Hanumanji is Shiva himself, and he is the bhakta of Sri Ramchandraji, so I got no problems. He's both for me. So when he's there, that's why one of the things you will see me talk about with the 9th graders when time comes around, I will ask each one of them, who is your Ishta Devata? Ishta means my favorite. Why do I pick a favorite? Because I want to find a form of Bhagwan that resonates with me right now where I am. With these set of personality quirks that I have, there's certain forms of Bhagwan that I resonate with. May I use that? May I leverage that and exploit it to the best of my ability so I can grow? Once I choose one, the mind has a tendency to want to shop, keep window shopping. Okay, yeah, I like Bhagwan Hanumanji, but I might also like Bhagwan Shiva. And then, Kartikeya is also cool. Ganeshji is also, it has a tendency to wander. So one of the first principles that Swamiji had told us when we were picking Ishtadevata is, doesn't matter why you picked it, once you've picked it, don't change. Consistency is important when it comes to developing bhakti. Sorry, I just had a funny thought. Once you get married, don't change your spouse. Commit to it, So the idea is, now that I've chosen, may I spend time to get to know them. May I go hunting for all the stories that are out there. Yeah, Hanumanji, I know because of Ramayana. But there are stories I've heard about how he swallowed the mango. So I'm like, where is it? Where is this story written? So I go hunting for it. And then I discover Panchamukhi Hanuman. Then how did Ravana, did he kill him? What was that story about? Who is Anjaneya, Anjana Amma? What's her story like? Where does he come from? Suddenly the exploration begins, and now there's this liking. I want to know who this Bhagwan is. And the more I get to know about Bhagwan, the more I get to study him, what he represents becomes more clear to me. Let's say Sri Ramchandraji is my Ishtadevata. Ramanama is the most powerful name. And in Ramcharitmanas, in Balakanda, he spends so much time exalting Ramanama, saying, Bhagwan Sri Ramchandraji, I don't even need you. Your name is greater than even you. Why? Because you have to physically be there to save all of the bhaktas in Ramayana. There's a handful. But how many people has your name saved without you? Far more. So Ram Nama is greater than you are. It's a poetic way of exalting the power of the name. And another perspective is, somewhere in Bhagavatam, it sits for a while examining the nature of Kali Yuga. In Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, the capacity of mankind was so much greater. And Kali Yuga right now, we're not even in the worst years yet. We're in the golden age of Kali Yuga. We're probably about 5,100 years into Kali Yuga. We don't even know how bad it's going to get. And already this good state is far more declined than those that are in Satya Yuga. So according to that, there's also the mainstream sadhanas that best suit that age. So Satya Yuga, they have a huge mental capacity. So that Jnana Yoga, Sannyasi, Dhyanam becomes the most important avenue for moksha. That is not available for us today. So what does the best means of liberation in Kali Yuga? Ram Nama Japa, says in Bhagavatam. And it is this Kali Yuga that we see the most number of people attaining moksha. What? You mean in the worst Kali Yuga you have the most bhaktas? How does that even work? Is it not that when things are going bad in our life, we say, Bhagwan, why are you doing this to me? When things are going well, who do we give credit to? Aha, look what I did. Look what I achieved. I get to put this on my resume. When does Bhagwan come into the equation? So it's easier to remember Bhagwan when things are not going well. It's the easiest to remember Bhagwan's name in an age that is designed to be sorrowful, Kali Yuga. Therefore, Rama Nama Japa, or Bhagwan's Nama Smaran, doesn't have to be specifically Ramchandra Ji, but Nama Smaran becomes our way out. Now, how does, again, I'm not losing track in why we're talking about this. Pao Gaf Pari Dhuyatam. How does general practice of Nama Japa help me with Prayaschitta Karma? If I am consistent in invoking the idea of Bhagwan and consistent in invoking the state of perfection Bhagwan represents, how will that affect me in analyzing the mistakes I've made? If Ramchandra Ji is my ideal, who is he? The perfect father, the perfect son, the perfect husband, the perfect friend. The more I get to know exactly how he's perfect, the more that ideal becomes clear to me. How can I not live up to that? Why am I making mistakes and not living up to the standard that Bhagwan Shri Ramchandra Ji has set? And there's a funny thing between Bhagwan Shri Krishna and Bhagwan Ramchandra Ji. Bhagwan Krishna comes as the Ishvara capacity that he knows fully well that he is Ishvara. Whereas Sri Ramchandra Ji has come in saying, I will represent the ideal man, Manushya. Therefore it said, follow Bhagwan Krishna's advice and follow Bhagwan Ramchandra Ji's examples. So a different style, but they invoke the ideal I'm trying to reach for. And if that's what I consistently hold in my mind again and again and again, what then becomes my perception on the mistakes I make? It becomes harder to make, like it hurts more when I make those mistakes. Why am I doing this? I have an ideal to live up to. I will never do this again. So again, Prayaschitta means there are specific ways to rectify the mistakes I've made, but in a more general sense, let me remember that ideal through Nama Japa and keep that at the forefront of my mind at all times so that I have a very clear idea of the weight behind making mistakes. With that sincerity and dedication to that higher altar, I will want to quickly regret, reform, and resolve, never to make those mistakes again, and I come back to the state of progression. So let us not underestimate Prayaschitta Karma in the form of Japa Yoga. Now, we think about Bhagwan Ganeshji. If he is my Ishta Devata, why do we invoke Bhagwan Ganeshji? You can ask any 5-year-old. Why do we worship Bhagwan Ganeshji? He's the remover of obstacles. He clears all challenges. Before we drive our car, before we start our new job, before we do anything, Bhagwan, may there not be any problematic obstacles in my path. Now here's a question. If I perform karma, then I'm guaranteed to get a result. Does that mean that if I invoke Bhagwan Ganeshji, that those results won't come? Doesn't that go against Siddhanta then? Here's another simple example. If I step off of this stage, isn't it guaranteed that gravity will pull me down? Does that mean that as I'm stepping off this stage, I start invoking Bhagwan Ganeshji, that he will not make me drop? That also doesn't make any sense. So when we say Prayaschitta Karma, that I'm invoking Bhagwan so that I may be cleared of the papas that I've done, does that mean my papas are removed? I won't ever feel the consequences of mistakes I've made? No. The subtlety here is when a karma is performed, there will be phala. But that phala can have a tendency to leave a vasana in my mind, a tendency or impression or a latent effect of the result that comes. So Prayaschitta Karma, Bhakti, and Japa Yoga will help me manage the impressions of vasanas and not necessarily the phala. A subtle difference here. Again, just like how we talked about Kamya Karma managed through Dharma will help me grow out of it. It will exhaust the vasanas. Not that I'm changing results. In the same way, when I perform japa yoga and prayaschitta karma, it will help me manage the impressions left in my mind because of that action and not necessarily change the result. May I grow from this constantly. May I exhaust these impressions, not create more. So that's the key difference, and that's the application of prayaschitta karma and performing actions through dharma. It is vasana management. Puja Gurudev says there's no debate between fate and free will. He says that every choice I make, aka free will, choice that I make now will inevitably lead to results down the road. That is my fate. Free will creates fate. What an interesting logic. I am the architect of my own future. So, karma, cause and effect will always be there, but what kind of impressions get left behind because of the effects? That I can manage. So, prayaschitta, dharma, helps me manage my vasanas, and it will also help me become more prepared to face the phala and result. By having strength within, by my dedication to Bhagwan, I'm able to be more stable when I go through the consequences of my mistake. I'm able to bear it with more samatvam, sthiraha, balanced way of handling that result. Much better than if I didn't have devotion. So it's an internal condition that gets purified, not the external results. So when these desires get washed away, so let's go back to the 2 steps, right? Kamye matisthyajatam, the kamas are now dealt with. We are growing out of them. I am able to renounce more and more desires in a healthy manner. Any papa that I've performed, I am also able to grow out of it. Everything has started to come to a settle point. What happens now? My mind has now become open. It's become available. It's now settled that I have energy, I have attention, I have control. What do I do with it now? This is when we come to the doorsteps of the qualifications of a student. This concept comes up in Tattva Bodha, the very introduction. Who is qualified to study Jnana? And of the first of all this 3 plus 6, 9 qualifications, the first one is Viveka. And that is the next step that is being said in this Sadhana Panchakam as well. After this, Papa Gaf Paridhuyatam. Next sentence is Bhava Sukhe Doshonu Sandhiyatam. Bhava Sukhe. Bhava means the realm of being, or realm of Sukha. So this world of joys and sorrows, temporary joys and sorrows, not that ultimate bliss here. In that world of Sukha, Anusandhiyatam. Doesn't it sound a lot like Nitya Vidhiyatam? So it's the same word again. May I study well. Anusandhiyatam. What am I studying in this world? The doshas in Sukha. The defects in this world of pleasures, may I study that well. This is not from Vedas now, this is from a experiential standpoint, and that's the skill of Viveka. That may I study this well, observe what is the nature of joy, where does it come from, what is my ego doing in all of this, what is this concoction of relationship that it's built up in my head, is it true, is it not true? To now suddenly have eyes that are open to start seeing the world in a whole different way. When does this step come? After we've done all of our karmas and settled the mind. Because we often want to jump to this state. Oh, I have viveka, I see permanency and impermanency, I see dharma, adharma, viveka, that's where we need to develop. Dude, we've got so much homework to do until we get to this point. We have to deal with our own karmas, kamas, and papas that we've been dealing with. There's so much work that needs to be done before we can even come to the point of clarity. And even then, it's an investigation. And anusandhiyatam, again, you hear that prefix anu, right? In this context, anu means again and again. So here, anusandhyatam, to study well, means smaranat, meaning may I remember the defects of this world of pleasure again and again. May I study that well. And when this mind becomes free and available to see this world, that is what we mean by purity. Purity is not this like glowing state of I'm sattva, I'm a good sadhaka. That's not the meaning of purity here. The mind has become available now. It's not plagued by kama. It's not plagued by the ego. It's not plagued by likes and dislikes. Things have been settled down, tamed and sublimated. It sits quietly. Now I'm ready to see the world. That's what purity means. Chitta shuddhi is often the first qualification. This is what it takes to come to this point. Once it's there, the purity, what am I really free from? There's again a framework of three. Three things that I'm constantly bothered by. When we say kama, what sort of desires will I have? There are three categories it falls under. First one is lokeshana, vitteshana, and putreshana. Three things. Lokeshana, loka, this worldly perception of me. I'm trying to make those word connections here. It is the addiction to fame. And it was a really good explanation for this. It is the intellect's addiction or the ego's addiction of its perception of the world, or the world's perception of it. Its statement would be, I am a force to be reckoned with. This is what I have, and this is what people respect. That's kind of the logic behind the addiction to fame. Don't we always crave for like confidence, self-esteem? Those are other vocabulary we use, but it's the same idea here. I want to have self-confidence. It doesn't matter what people criticize me about. I want to be able to say, no, I'm good. I'm a force to be reckoned with. That's the projection of the intellect. This is what we're addicted to. Second form is a sense of security. Vitteshana. Vitta often translates to wealth. Wealth translates to a sense of security. I know we joke around saying that Indian parents often say, don't get a weird job. We don't know what it's all going to be about. It's going to be unstable. Don't become a musician. Don't become a, poet or a philosopher. Like, who knows what kind of job you're going to get? I don't know what sort of stability you're going to get. It comes from a good place. We all want that sense of security. And I did this exercise with our chicks. You say, from society, we take things. And they listed money as one of them. I said, what do you do with money? Because if nothing else existed in this world and you only had money, does that actually give you what you need? No. Money is still a medium through which we are trying to gain other things. So I asked them, write all over this whiteboard every last detail of where you spend your money on and for what reason. And it goes everywhere from the basic needs all the way to the most fanciful ideas of luxury. Full spectrum. But why do we pursue that? I need to feel safe. And philosophy doesn't even come into someone's mind if they're begging for food and shelter. So there's an understanding there. Last one is putreshana. And again, I'll go through a sequence of layers of meaning. Putra means children. It can also mean the addiction to the other gender or, sensual desires. That can also be there. It can also be relationships, addiction to relationships. One more layer is, sensual pleasure, it's a representation of all other sensual pleasures, meaning all five senses. What I see, what I taste, what I hear, what I smell, there's one I'm missing. And then also the five organs of action. What I do, what I say, what I hold, what I reproduce, all of that is included in this. In this bodily experience, I want to experience pleasure. So this is kind of like the general arenas that they've seen, how we can categorize our kamas. Lokeshana, the standing of the ego in the world around us. Vitteshna, a sense of security through materials, and Putreshna, a sensual, pleasureful experience on all 5 levels. These are the things that constantly bother us when we say desires. I know in assembly and other things I often take food because it's the most easy example to think about, but look at how far these examples can go, to how many different levels. Vivekachudamani says, each animal is bothered by one sense. What is the state of human beings are bothered by all 5? Once these defects are managed, then the mind becomes available. So, to wrap up everything here, an exercise, a thought process, is in my week, let me write down all the urges I had, like desires, wants, needs. It could be substantial things, it could be unsubstantial, it could be minute, whatever it is. Just keep listing them. If you want, keep like a board on your fridge as you're walking by or something, just jot down whatever comes to your head. Next to that, kind of think about in which category does this fall under? Because the key here is dosho anusandhiyatam. I have to find fallacies in these approaches. Why is going after fame a problem? Why is finding security through wealth a problem? Why is running after sensual pleasures, sensual pleasures, why is that a problem? Try to investigate and find the doshas in each of the sukha. Bhava sukhe dosho anusandhiyatam. Just as a mental exercise, a self-application. So I will leave that as an exercise. We will pick up the idea of what it means to study the fallacies in the world outside. Yeah. Yeah. Just for this exercise, go ahead and include goals as well. Just as a thought exercise. Don't freak out. I know it's like, am I gonna like rip apart my entire life because I'm finding fallacies in my goals? Just a thought exercise, because we're trying to test out this skill of what it means to find doshas in something that I see as a sukha. Just a simple exercise. We're not gonna fundamentally change our lives, but if you were really sincere about it, it probably will. But anyways, just an exercise. So include goals in there just for now. Yeah. Okay, so with that, let us go ahead and close. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.